it's Melissa from Melissa's Creations, and today I'm going to show you how to make this bendy card. So if you look at it from this angle, you can see that the bottom here is slightly bent so that it stands up on its own. It's just a single card up at the top, and at the bottom we have these two little bendy flaps, and you can actually open it up and you can write your sentiment right here, or write a little note, and I have my happy blooming birthday up at the top. This is made with the 2016-2018 in colors. This is the Dapper Denim, and I've contrasted it with the Peekaboo Peach. I just think those two colors together are absolutely gorgeous. I made these two flowers using the Flower Patch stamp set, and I cut them out with the coordinating framelits dies. This little guy here on top does not have a coordinating framelit, so I cut that one out by hand, but it's really not that bad. And the way that I assembled my flowers, I was able to tuck this flap under this flower here so it stays closed. So it's really a cute little card. I've seen photos of the bendy cards, but I haven't actually watched any videos on how to make it, so I just kind of came up with this one on my own. I'm sure that pretty much anybody that has made a bendy card probably does it fairly close to the same way, but I'm going to show you how I came up with this card today. So what we will need is a regular sheet of cardstock. I'm using the Whisper White, and this is a sheet of 8.5 by 11. We're going to start by cutting the base of our card. So I'm going to bring out my paper trimmer here. And the side flap here, when you open it, this piece right here measures 2.5 by 2. I think actually the 2 is this way and the 2.5 is this way. So the first thing that I'm going to do is line this up at the 2.5 on my trimmer. A little bit of a glare there, but okay. So I'm going to line it up at 2.5, and I want 2 inches. Let me just measure this really quick. Yes, this is 2 inches this way. So I want to cut, since my paper is 8.5 inches long here, I want to cut to, let's see, half. It's 1, 2. So I want to cut to the 6.5. So I'm just going to bring my cutter all the way down until this little knob point gets to 6.5. And then I'm going to stop, lift it up slightly, drag my cutter down, and then I'm going to bring in my score, and I want to score the rest. So I have cut all the way down to the 6.5, and then I've scored the rest of the paper at the same line. So now I want to move my card over until my cut line matches up with the 4 1/4, because I've designed this to still fit into a regular Stampin' Up! Envelope, the medium-size envelope. So this will be at 4 1/4 here. I'm going to bring both of my cutter and score blade back up to the top. And now my second flap here, this side, it measures 4 1/4 long by 1.5. So now I'm going to cut down until I get to the 7, and that will give me a 1.5 inch flap there. So cut down to the 7, bring your trimmer, lift this up, bring your cutting blade to the bottom, bring in your score, and score the rest of the way. And now we're going to flip it and trim off these excess pieces here, just down to where we cut. So I'm going to bring my blade all the way back up to the top. I'm going to lay my track down here, and I'm going to line this up so that my cut line is just right in the middle of my track, and then I'm just going to cut, and you can kind of feel it, but you can also see where that cut line is, and you can just match up the little notch on your cutter. So then that piece just slips away. So then I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing on this end. So I'm going to line it up until I can see my cut in the window of my track there. And then cut down, and there we go. That is the base of our card. It looks like an odd shape right now, but it's actually, let me see if I can zoom out just a hair. There we go. It's coming together rather nicely. So now we want to trim this piece down so that it's 5.5 this way right here. So I'm just going to pop this back in the trimmer, and oh, actually that one's cut down a little farther. Do I need to? Yeah, that's the same size. I need to trim that one just a wee bit more, but not a problem at all. Just pop it back in. Line that up. And we'll just pop off a little bit more. There we are. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky to see that, but we got it. We've got it going on now, so there we go. Okay, so now we want to trim this down to 5.5 so that it will fit into a regular envelope. So line that up at 5.5 and whoop, just trim that right off like that. And there's the base of our card so far. Now we will start cutting our DSP panels to go onto the card. So the first size that you need is going to cover the whole back of the card. So that's just the standard 4 by 5.25. So we'll chop off a bit at 4 here and 5.25. And that will lay nicely right here. And let's see if this panel actually, that chunk was just about the right size, so I'm going to actually use that scrap that I cut off, and that measures 1.25 by 4. So we're going to place that on here, and then we need our little flap guy here. So grabbing another scrap here, this is just about the right size, and that measures 1.75, and now we want to trim the length of it down to 2.25. So I'll pop that back in, 2.25, and now that will lay right there. So then when we get our card assembled, we'll have that kind of an effect. Oop. And I haven't creased any of those lines yet, so it's still a little wompy, but we're getting there. Okay, so that's all the DSP, and we do want to trim a piece down for the inside of our card here, and this piece here measures 2.5 by 3.5. So let's see what we have here. It's a little bit long, so we'll just trim that down to 3.5, and we'll trim this down to 2.5. You could really make that any size you want. I just find that that's a good size for this. Okay, so then that will layer there. We're also going to need a scrap that measures approximately 1.125 by 3, and this is a pretty good size, but I do want to, it is important for the double punch technique that I'm going to show you to trim that down to 1.125. So I'm just gonna lop off a section here. And I want it to be 1.125. And again, that measurement is pretty important for the technique that we're going to do. Let's see. Oop. I believe that's 1.125. Yeah. Okay. So we have our 1.125 inch scrap there. Let me see. Yeah, that's going to be great. Okay. So we can move our trimmer out of the way. And the first thing I'm going to do is glue down all of my DSP. And I do have my ribbon here, and I've actually opted to wrap it all the way around the card. If you'd like, you can just wrap it around the DSP itself, but I'm going to do it all the way around, so I'm going to glue this down now. If you wanted to just wrap it around your DSP so you don't see it on the back, do that before you glue it down. So I'm just going to grab some snail. And stick that down to my base, making sure I have an even amount of white border all the way around. And we will stick these down. You can use flowers on both sides, but I like the contrast of having the stripes on one of the edges here, on the sides, down near the bottom. And this one. And depending on how you cut your paper, your stripes may go the same way or they may go different ways. There. Okay, so now here comes the bendy part. So we're just going to take our bone folder and very carefully, so you don't rip it, you're going to grab it here with your thumb and index finger. And then you're going to gently, like you're curling ribbon with scissors almost, you're just going to kind of bend that a little bit. And I'm going to try and do it from the reverse side too. So it gives us that nice curve. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here. This one's a little tricky. I'm grabbing onto that DSP too. You could do this before you put the DSP on and then just do it to each individual piece, but this works just fine too. Okay, so then it gives us that slight curve so that once we get our flowers on and it kind of holds itself together, it will stand up like this. Okay, so now let's get ready to do some stamping. I'm going to bring in some scrap pieces of paper that I just used to cut the base of my card. And I am using Flower Patch today with the coordinating framelits. This is a really versatile set. Again, you guys have seen me use this over and over, but I can't tell you how much I love it. It's great. There's so many different possibilities. And I just came up with this card this morning and I just fell in love with it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to share this with the world. It's so stinking cute. I love it. All right, so I grabbed out the 4 flowers that we're going to use. We're layering those 2 together and these 2 together. So I'm going to grab a block, and I'm using my Peekaboo Peach. And on this card, I did full ink on all 4 of the stamps here, but I think what I'm gonna do is do the stamp off technique on the bottom flowers, just so that the tops pop a little bit more. Or I could do it reverse. Do I want the top darker or the bottom darker? I want the bottom darker. So I'm actually going to do full ink on the bottom. So let me grab my paper covered paper piercer mat. Oh, that's a tongue twister. Uh-oh. Malfunction. I have my little camera here being held up by some painter's tape. It decided to give out on me. Okay, there we go. We're still good. Still okay. All right, so full ink for the bottom. Perfect. Clean that off so that we can put it away nice and clean. We'll do full ink on the bottom of this flower. Depending on, I'm going to actually put this down here because when I run it through the cutter, I want to do as many as I can at once. So giving a little bit of room between them will help you. Okay, and this one we're cutting out by hand, so I'm stamping off because I just want it half as dark, and since I'm doing it by hand I can do it a little closer to these. Okay, great. So clean that one off and bring in our last guy here. Stamp off, and we'll put him up in this corner. Okay, and we are going to use the Wink of Stella brush to add a little bit of shimmery glitteriness. So that will darken these just slightly. But I do like the contrast of a darker and a lighter. So now I'm going to carefully move all of my pieces. Oh, let's do a little bit more stamping actually while we have everything handy. So this is our inside piece. So we're just going to add a couple of stamps to the corners of that. And we're using this fun little starburst guy here. And then the smaller one. So I'm going to use a smaller block to pick this one up. Peekaboo Peach. And I'm going to do it off of the corner on both corners here. And I'll pick up the little one, and we're going to do him 3 times right around that guy. Stamping ever so slightly off the edge. There. Cuteness. Okay. Clean that off again. I don't think we have one more thing to stamp. We're going to stamp our Happy Blooming Birthday sentiment. I'll set him here. And I'm going to need a larger block. And we'll get our Happy Bloomin' Birthday out. Okay, we're going to stamp that guy in the same color. Tap, 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 tap. And right there in the middle. We're going to use the double punch technique on this, so I want to make sure I leave enough room on each side to get that punch. And then I have one to cut out by hand, and I'll show you how quick it really goes. I'm just going to cut around it so I can get to it. And then you just start, and I'm leaving some white space. You really don't have to get far into it at all. And it doesn't have to be perfect because people aren't really going to focus on that. They're going to focus on how fun the Bendy card is and how different. It's something different. I had not seen it before. I was on Pinterest and I was just looking for some ideas, and I saw a couple of Bendy cards and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so cute. So I wanted to give it a try. This is actually my very first attempt, this card that I'm demoing for you right now. It came out much better than I expected. Normally when I try and do something on my own for the first time, I have to redo it a few times before I actually like the outcome. But this one just kind of came to me like a dream, and I loved it. So I wanted to share it with you guys. There, see? Painless. And as I was cutting, it kind of gave it a little bit of shape too. Kind of popped up a little bit, which is what I really like. So now we're going to go ahead and do our double punch technique. And for this, we're using the decorative label punch, this guy here. And it's cut at 1 1/8 because when you slip it in, we're going to slip it right in the side here, then it will line up well with each side. And actually 1 1/8 is still a little big. And you can see that we have little tiny tabbies on the side here, which we're just going to use some scissors to trim that down. So I tried 1 inch and it was too small. 1 1/8 is too big. So maybe 1 1/16 actually would be the best. So now we're just going to slide this back in and try and get that lined up so that our points are at the same spot. So I just kind of line it up with the other edge here and just fiddle around with it a bit. You'll get there. Might take a moment, but it really is worth it. It's super cute when it's cut out. A little more. There we go. Okay, so that's the double punch technique. Just because I used the edges here. And I'm just going to take my large scissors and I'm just going to trim that down slightly. There. Okay, so we'll get these scraps out of the way. There's that. Now we're going to use our sponge dauber, bring in a little bit more Peekaboo Peach. I'm just going to daub around the edges of this guy to make him really pop and stand out, because he's going to be flush up against, we're going to pop him up with some dimensionals, but he's going to be against that blue DSP, and I just really want that peach to shine. Okay. So now we can start assembling. I have some mini glue dots. I'm going to pick one up with my paper piercer, put one on the back of the little guy, and put him on here. I do like the contrast looking at this one. You can see the difference. One of them's much lighter, but we're going to darken it up just slightly with the Wink of Stella. So I just really like how that looks. Contrast here. Super cute so far. We're going to take some basic pearls. I'm going to do a large one. Ooh! Oh dear. He flew. Found it. Recovered. I'm going to do the large one on here. And I'm going to do one of these medium size on this one. And if you do mail this, you do want to be careful that you try and keep it semi-flat. I mean, when you mail it, you can flatten it up and then it kind of keeps its shape. But with the pearls, if you put those through the mail, sometimes you want to put another layer of paper over it just to kind of protect it from ripping the envelope. All right, so now I have some Peekaboo Peach ruched ribbon. This ribbon is actually on back order at the moment. It has been so popular, and understandably, because it is just gorgeous. So I'm just going to wrap that around, and actually I'm going to do this way just because it's easier for me to tie with this side here. And we're just going to tie a knot, and I'm just going, oh, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 inches down the paper, and I'm going to tie my knot in the middle. Don't want it too tight because I want to make sure that my card doesn't buckle. Okay, little knot. Then we're going to take our snips, and I'm going to cut a banner cut. So you just fold your ribbon in half, and then cutting away from the knot like that at an angle, you get that little banner effect on your ribbon. And we'll just trim down this side as well. Same thing, fold it in half, trim away from the knot, and don't get your fingers caught in there. Sharp scissors. There. Cute. If you'd like, you can stick that knot down with a glue dot, but I think that's just fine. Super cute. Now we'll take some dimensionals, pop up our greeting, 2 on the back here. Put that up at the top in the middle. Stick this down with some snail. And even amount of DSP all the way around it. Okay, and now the longer flap goes on the top, so I'm going to get these ready. So I'm just using some Wink of Stella to color in the petals, and you really don't have to be precise with this at all. It just adds, it's clear, so it adds that shimmery glitter to it. Super easy way to get beautiful, fun accent on your cards. And you can see how quickly it just goes on. It's just a little brush on the end of this pen. Inside is a glitter solution, almost like a blender pen with glitter in it. What's nice about these is you can actually pick up additional color with your classic stamp pads and use it the same way as a blender pen. You just want to make sure you clean it off really well by rubbing it back and forth on some paper to get the excess ink off when you're done. All right, so we're going to use a dimensional on the back of this guy, and I'm putting that one kind of in the middle, but I want to put him off to the side. And I don't want him to go over the edge of my card because I still want to fit this into a regular envelope. So I've just come to just about the edge of the card on this side. And on this one, I want it to hold my card closed. So I want to make sure I put my dimensional just off center down here. So we'll try this placement and see how that goes. So what I'm going to do is butt this up against the top of this so I know how far I can come down. I'm going to lay it flat, and then I'm just going to adhere it to that side. And you can see that it popped up. I had my placement off just a touch. So to fix that, you can either cut it off or you can just add a little sheet of paper to it, because when it lays down flat, it will stick to the card, which it won't hurt it, because especially if you make it sticky a couple times. But again, just watch that placement and you can avoid that mistake. That's one great thing about watching the videos, is you can learn from my mistakes and do it better. But see, it doesn't even hardly stick down anymore, and if it does, it just pops right back up. So it's really not that big of a deal. So anyway, that is our cute Happy Blooming birthday card with the new Designer Series paper in the In Colors 2016-2018 Dapper Denim, and we've also used the new ruched ribbon in Peekaboo Peach and the Flower Patch stamp set to get these gorgeous accents on the front. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I love doing these videos for you, so if you'd like to see more, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can be notified when I post new videos. You can also see updates at my blog, melissascreations.com. You can shop with me at melissascreations.stampinup.net, and you can also follow me on Facebook, where I have lots of goodies and giveaways and Stamping Saturday videos once a month. That is facebook.com/mcreations. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I really enjoy doing these projects with you, and I hope to see you soon.